Thank you very much. My next guest directed a film called Halloween that became the most successful independent production in motion picture history. His latest film, about to open, is called The Thing. Please welcome John Carpenter.
John Howard Carpenter is an American filmmaker, screenwriter, producer, composer, and musician. Born January 16th in 1948 in Carthage, New York. Noted for his imprint on the horror genre, with critically acclaimed films such as Halloween, The Fog, Escape from New York, They Live, and Starman. His other films are noted as cult classics, though not to be underestimated, pulling from filmmakers such as Roger Corman, John Ford, and Howard Hawks. His body of work also inspired a swarm of critically acclaimed directors such as Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez. A college dropout sacrificing his educational career to begin filming his first feature film, his ideas were bigger than budget, setting his career and cultural impact noteworthy. Throughout this video essay, I will be discussing John Carpenter's inspirations, collaborators, and overall impact on cinema. He was age 5 when his family moved to Bowling Green, Kentucky, where his father taught music at Western Kentucky University. During his time at the University of Southern California, John co-wrote, composed a score, and edited a Western short film entitled The Resurrection of Bronco Billy. This film went on to win an Academy Award for Best Live Action Short. During his time there, he co-wrote a short film alongside Dan O'Bannon entitled Dark Star. This gained traction, and both writers created their first feature-length films. This would cause the director John Carpenter to drop out of college and continue to collaborate with the future screenplay writer of the 1979 film, Alien. During his time at USC, John had met a few faces that would stick around for decades to come: Nick Castle and Tommy Lee Wallace. John and Tommy Lee Wallace had a collaboration that began in 1978 for the film Halloween, which Carpenter directed and co-wrote, which Wallace would be serving as a production designer and editor. That movie went on to become a massive success, solidifying their partnership. Following that success, Wallace took a prominent role in the franchise. In 1982, he directed Halloween 3, which was co-wrote with John Carpenter, as well as John doing the score. Apart from the Halloween series, Carpenter and Wallace collaborated on other projects. Wallace would work as a production designer on Carpenter's films The Fog and Escape from New York, as well as Carpenter's action comedy Big Trouble in Little China, starring Kurt Russell, in 1990. Tommy Lee Wallace would go on to be the director of the hit TV miniseries It. Nick Castle would also go on to work in Halloween, serving as Michael Myers in that film. Nick also served as the alien in Dark Star. Castle would serve as a co-writer on the 1981 film Escape from New York. Both Nick, Tommy, and John played in a band called Coupe de Villes, creating the main theme for Big Trouble in Little China. This band started when they were in college and didn't last very long after that film was made. Dean Cundey and John Carpenter had a long and successful work relationship in the film industry. Dean Cundey is a renowned cinematographer. Together, they collaborated on several iconic films, forming a creative partnership that left a significant impact on the industry. Their collaboration began with the 1978 horror classic Halloween. Cundey served as the cinematographer for this film, creating the atmospheric and suspenseful visuals that became synonymous with the franchise. The use of lighting, framing, and camera movements played a crucial role in building tension and enhancing the scares, establishing Cundey's expertise in the genre. Following the success of Halloween, Cundey and Carpenter continued to work together on subsequent projects. They collaborated on such films as The Fog, Escape from New York, and The Thing. These movies showcase Cundey's skill in capturing Carpenter's unique storytelling style, which often combines suspense, action, and a touch of supernatural. Cundey's cinematography, characterized by his masterful use of lighting and composition, helped to establish the distinctive visual tone of Carpenter's films. The duo's collaboration was marked by their shared understanding of how to create mood, atmosphere, and tension on screen. Cundey's work complemented Carpenter's direction, contributing to the overall effectiveness and impact of their films. Their last major collaboration was on the 1995 film Village of the Damned, where Cundey again served as the cinematographer. While their partnership may not have continued as actively after that point, their work together had a lasting influence on the horror and sci-fi genres. Dean Cundey's cinematography and John Carpenter's storytelling became synonymous with a certain kind of a cinematic experience, and their collaborations remain celebrated among fans of their work. John and Dean's work relationship was characterized by a shared vision for atmospheric storytelling and mutual understanding of each other's creative sensibilities. John Carpenter often employed wide-angle shots and beautiful cinematography to capture the essence of the setting in his films, much like John Ford. Both directors had a knack for visually portraying landscapes and environments. Carpenter's films like Escape from New York and Big Trouble in Little China showcase the affinity for visual striking compositions, reminiscent of Ford's attention to detail in capturing the American West. John Ford's films often explored themes in honor, duty, and traditional values, which resonated with Carpenter. And some of Carpenter's films, like They Live, their underlying social commentaries and examinations of societal norms, much like Ford's exploration of American values in films such as The Searchers. While John's films may not directly replicate the style or subject matter of John Ford's, the influence is evident in various aspects. Carpenter's appreciation for Ford's storytelling, visual aesthetics, and thematic exploration contribute to this enduring legacy of both directors in the realm of the American cinema. Carpenter admired Hawks' filmmaking style and drew inspiration from his approach to storytelling. Howard Hawks was a prolific director and producer who worked primarily during the golden age of Hollywood. He directed a wide range of films across various genres, including westerns, comedies, film noir, and action thrillers. Some of his notable works included Scarface, Bringing Up Baby, His Girl Friday, and Rio Bravo. Carpenter specifically cited Hawks' film Rio Bravo as a major influence on his film Assault on Precinct 13. Rio Bravo is a western film centered around a small-town sheriff and a group of unlikely allies who defend a jail against a powerful rancher's gang. Carpenter admired the way Hawks created tension and suspense with a confined setting, which he sought to replicate in his own film. In Assault on Precinct 13, Carpenter crafted a similar scenario with a group of individuals trapped in a police station under a siege of a street gang. The film employed a minimalist and claustrophobic atmosphere, showcasing Carpenter's skills in building tension and creating a sense of impending danger. Apart from Assault on Precinct 13, Carpenter's overall approach to filmmaking, particularly his blend of suspense and action, owes a debt to Howard Hawks. Both directors shared a focus on strange characters, snappy dialogue, and practical effects. They also possessed a knack for crafting tense and thrilling sequences that keep audiences engaged. Overall, Carpenter was inspired by Hawks' ability to tell compelling stories across different genres, and he incorporated elements of Hawks' style into his own films. Carpenter did not stop there in paying homage to Howard Hawks. In 1982, Carpenter did a retelling of Howard Hawks' The Thing from Another World, would serve as John's first major studio production. John would go on to bring some of his trusted crew, but also had more weight in pulling one extra person to assemble his dream team. In prior films, John donned the task of composing scores, but this time, John was able to get Ennio Morricone for this project. Morricone is primarily known for his scoring of Western films. As an Italian composer, there was a language barrier at large. Ennio and John had to communicate with a translator to relay the imagery John needed for his isolated film. Prior to this, Carpenter worked primarily by himself or in association with Alan Howarth. John would arrange an array of scores during his time at USC, during Dark Star, Assault on Precinct 13, and Halloween. Aside from Ennio Morricone, Carpenter drew inspiration from composers such as Bernard Herrmann for his direct relation in how a piece of music could reel in the audience. He would also look towards more recent films for inspiration, such as The Exorcist. John was also into rock and roll, and would pull from bands such as Pink Floyd for their incorporation of synth. When Escape from New York came about, John was looking further to enhance his soundboard to engage the audience in the atmosphere of his films. John had come across Alan Howarth, who had previously worked on the sound effects for Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Carpenter handed Howarth a copy of Tangerine Dream and his previous works, such as Assault on Precinct 13, to listen to before John would ever walk in the room to lay down some keys. Alan Howarth was the technical arranger of scores and would design his own synth waves to incorporate into each score. Together, Carpenter and Howarth created some of the most memorable soundtracks in cinema history. Their collaborations include the music for Halloween 2, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, Christine, Big Trouble in Little China, and They Live. These scores often feature haunting melodies, driving synthesizers, and a sense of foreboding that perfectly complemented Carpenter's visual storytelling. When Halloween 4 was in the works, John Carpenter declined the transaction to score the film. Alan Howarth was then asked to take on that role. Howarth then continued to score 3 more Halloween films without the presence of John Carpenter. Tommy Lee Wallace, Nick Castle, Dean Cundy, and Alan Howarth are the team and crew that observed and assisted John Carpenter into being what he is known for, the horror master and auteur. John took a hiatus from filmmaking after his last motion picture, The Ward. He would then go on to making comic books with his wife and producer of many films, Sandy King. Carpenter currently enjoys a life of playing video games and watching basketball. That is until he then put all that on hold to return to the black and white keys. John went back to the studio in 2015 to create an album entitled Lost Themes. This album would be created with his son, Cody, and his godson, Daniel Davies. After 2 more albums, this would be the start of John re-entering the film industry. In 2018, it was announced that John Carpenter would then return to the Halloween franchise as producer and composing the revamped score. In that same year, John announced that he would be touring with his band, promoting his album Anthology, which consisted of live performances of his scores throughout the years. In 2022, John created the score for Halloween Ends, which was his last dip in the film industry so far.